people may relate to you based on the demands of your life. So what does your routine look like? What's a day that I would just?
Sure. So a day in the life,
Yeah.
it's really routine and it's fairly boring.
Okay.
It really is, and it's just that because I can essentially eat the same thing over and over, and I usually just don't get burned out.
Wow.
Right, and that's okay. So the day in the life is, I typically do not eat until probably around 11 o'clock. That's the first time I eat anything, and I eat a fairly big portion. I usually eat at least 4 eggs, and then more or less the farm-raised organic eggs. So I cook those eggs always in organic coconut oil, and I do eat some bacon. It's not a pork. It's an organic type of bacon that doesn't have any nitrates or anything in it. So it only has like 3 or 4 ingredients in it that I can actually pronounce. And then I have avocado.
Okay.
So that's what I'll have for the lunch. And then I don't really do any snacking, and if I do snacking, it's whole unsalted nuts of those type of natures. So, I don't overdo fruit. I will have fruit, but fruit does have, even though it's natural, does have a lot of sugar in it. So I really try to keep my fruit intake low and the vegetables high.
Okay.
The only way that I'm able to manage doing that is Sherry finally convinced us to buy a Vitamix, and I didn't want to spend the money to buy a Vitamix because that's just the way I am. Nevertheless, we bought the Vitamix from Costco, a really, really nice one, and you're able to fit a whole thing of kale in there, a whole avocado, and I put 1 banana in there with a little wheatgrass, and I filled up with water, and I can literally, it's almost about 10 servings, and I can knock that out within the whole day. Like I'll just drink it, like I'll just pound that. So I'm able to get all my vegetables that way. And then when dinner time comes, it's usually very light. Sherry does a lot of the cooking at the house, and I'll just kind of, I eat different things at dinner time, but I don't really eat too much at dinner because I'm not home too. So anyways, that's kind of a snapshot.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that we are taking notes. So when it comes to behavioral change, there are 2 things that are important for behavioral change: the behaviors and the tools. And what I hear Jesse saying here is that there's behaviors that he has adopted. He eats good food, heavy breakfast, lunch type thing. He makes sure there's vegetable servings, so that is there. And then there's a tool that he mentioned. Somebody tell me, what tool has he shared with us? Yolanda. He just talked about a tool.
How to eat healthy.
There's a tool that he
Vitamix.
Vitamix. So as these 2 share their stories, I want you to pick those 2 things: behaviors and tools. Thank you, Jesse. Nita, would you tell us about a day in the life of Nita, and so we can glean from? I'm sure you had your hand up. Sorry, you wanted to say something? No?
Oh, just that Jesse, when he comes home from lunch, also jogs 2 miles every day at lunchtime too. So that's a big difference.
No, that's true. Thank you. Thank you for picking that up. Nita.
Well, I didn't really prepare anything for today per se, other than just reiterating what my life has basically been for the last 3 to 4 years. That's why, because of the last 3 or 4 years, is the reason why I made changes most recently. About 4 years ago, my dad passed away, and that was my responsibility as guardian to resolve all those issues with the estate and things like that. So at that time, I was going through some personal issues, and then at my job, they decided to make me a lead. So I had 3 major incidents happening simultaneously. And I found out at that time, I didn't even know, it was only because I needed to go to the dentist that I found out that my blood pressure was 200 over 90, and had been, I think, a long time. Well, grace of God, I didn't fall out, have a stroke, or any of those things that normally happen. So that was my journey, basically, is to try to figure out, and that's my take for most any person, is to find out what's going on with your body. doctors, again, they're practicing, okay? So you know your body a lot better than the doctors. So try to see where you are with your health first. So fast forward, my blood pressure is under control and things like that. So we'll fast forward, back in October, I knew my health still wasn't what I wanted my health to be, because we know when we feel good, right? We know when there's no pain, no stomach aches, no headaches and things like that, and I still was going through some issues. And I just decided, after doing some research, and that's another thing, it's really important that each person take the responsibility and research, read comparative information and things like that, along with your history. And I decided back in October that meat was not a good thing for me. So I stopped eating meat, dairy, anything, as my kids say, because all three of us now are vegan, anything with eyeballs. And that was not simple, but because I had educated myself on a couple of things about how the meat really, and I don't want to, you got to be ready for it, because we build our meals around meat. There's always, I grew up, there was always a piece of meat. You didn't have a meal unless you had a piece of meat growing up. Well, after I've been researching and doing a lot of praying and studying and things like that, meat really isn't designed for us to eat. That's one of the things I wrote down because I thought it was important. And it says, natural meat eaters eat flesh raw. Okay, so the animals that eat meat eat flesh raw. They have claws, sharp teeth, a short intestine, which means the meat doesn't stay in their bodies long, as it does in ours. It stays in our bodies long enough to rot. They have jaws that move up and down only. We don't. Their stomachs can digest hair. Humans lack all of these natural meat-eating traits. And then because of the meat being such, the industry is such productive, fast food kind of oriented, there are so many shortcuts that are taken. So the meat isn't like the meat was on the farm when you got up in the morning, you went to feed the chickens, and the meat is quite tame. And I'm not going to go into all that because I'm not trying to discourage people on eating meat, except for what I found, it was enough to let me know that I don't need to eat something dead to stay alive. Okay? So I stopped eating meat in October, and because I educated, I'm going to go back to that over and over. John has been saying for the longest, you have to find your why. If you don't know why you're doing it, it's not going to last. It's only going to be temporary. And even me, even though I know why, you're still tempted in this world. Like I was talking, a friend of mine called yesterday and asked me to take her to the store because she doesn't drive. And I said, okay, I'll do that. And it was so hard because she went to Safeway, and I haven't been to Safeway in a while. And she went to that deli part and got all that fried chicken. And that stuff was smelling good. And I was tempted. So I'm not saying that I'm there 100%. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is I found my why, and I have to remember my why every day. Because now to be honest, I'm not as a fanatic as my oldest daughter, who will not even, she doesn't even want a fork to touch anything that has eyeballs. So if you have a fork and you say accidentally put some mayonnaise on it, so I'm not there, and I don't want to be a fanatic like that. So my point is that, I have been tempted, but you have to continue to find your why. And so, with John, a lot of his health, and I've listened to him, and most of us have taken notes over the last, how long has John been doing this? 7 years, 8 years?
Oh, wow.
And so, just the accumulation of knowledge and information has come to fruition for me in many ways. So fast forward, that was in October with no meat, no dairy, no egg, nothing, no butter. And I'm telling you, it's a whole new life change. But it's worth it and has been for me. So you fast forward to January and we go into what I now at first used to dread, but now kind of have to tell myself, wait a minute, fasting, right? We start the year off fasting. And so I had to reiterate and say, okay, what am I going to fast? I can't say I'm fasting meat. I can't say I'm fasting any of those things because that's no longer my diet. So I had to be real. And I don't know, I've had to be real under a lot of his teachings, and sugar was my idol. It really was my idol and has been for all my life. I mean, cakes, cookies, pies, donuts, cookies, pies, donuts, candy, every single day, just eating that. And when he came to fasting, I said, okay, I have to give up the sugar. And I found out that was my idol. I don't know about you guys, but I didn't know. It was my idol. But like you say, if you can do something for 21 days, you're pretty much kind of over it, because he has said many times that our addictions are the fact that we want to stop doing certain things, but we can't. And when you really think about what are you doing that you don't want to continue to do, but you can't stop doing. Well, I had to look at myself and say sugar. Sugar was it. And I had to be real because God knows our heart. And in January, I gave up the sugar in a way that was unbelievable. And by the time I went to the doctor recently, I had lost like 25, almost 30 pounds.
Oh.
So that's more than what you asked, but I just had to give you a little bit of the knowledge, information, and education. And these things are not going to happen unless you make up your mind, find your why, do your research, and know that it is beneficial for you to make the changes no matter where you are. It's beneficial, and then keeping that why ever before you. So, anyway.
Thank you, Nita. No, that answered several questions. So you talked about a day in your life, like what you typically, and why you changed, what prompted that change. And I think that's something really important for us. Sometimes we go through life and we don't realize that there's major life events. When you have loss of somebody, when you have a promotion or a change in job, when you have a change in home, all those things are major life changes, and they're putting so much stress on you emotionally. And if you don't get the emotional answer, many times you're going to get a substance answer. Either it's food or some other substance or some other addiction. So I appreciate that Nita identified 3 things that went on in her life at that point in time that affected her health. She talked about some personal issues she was going through, the loss of her dad, and then the promotion at work. And those things impacted her health. Now, if we go through life and we are oblivious to the things that are impacting us, we may get sucked down into addiction or wrong things, and we don't know the core of it.
Right.
So I appreciate you sharing that with that. You also talked about your why. You've done research, and that is well appreciated. Thank you. So Jesse, what is your why? What prompted change for you?
Sure. A little bit like Nita's also. It was about 10 years ago, and it was, I didn't realize that I had really, really high blood pressure. Went to a job fair, and you go do the job fair for the company, and I got these results back that I was not happy with at all. And back then, I had started going to the gym, but I did not do anything about food. I just ate, drank, and pretty much did it all. And to I go, well, I go to the gym, and she goes, you can keep on going to the gym all day long. She goes, if you don't change what you're eating, going to the gym's not gonna fix that, right, type of thing. And it bothered me so much, because I think I was 31 or 32 years old, and my blood pressure was, I fasted, I had to go back and fast to do blood pressure again, so it can actually give you a really good reading. And I was like 170 over 95 or something like that. And it was just awful. And and so I was honest, like, what am I eating? And I was eating all the fast food. I was just on that train. But it bothered me so much. Like, it really bothered me so much. So that's where I landed. I didn't ask my why I was back then, but that's exactly why I did it. It bothered me so much that I actually was on medication. At 31, 32 years old, it bothered me so personally, so much. And it wasn't that I knew a little bit about health. We don't need more information or books written about health. We really don't need that. It's out there, it's available. I flipped the switch, and it wasn't 100% radical. I just slowly started incorporating things, and the more I started learning, I started getting rid of. Pop was one of the first things I got rid of. I used to drink like rock stars and Pepsis, and I used to all the time. And I did not realize, I always thought, well, there's no fat in that stuff, that's not bad, but when I'm starting to learn, wow, it's sugars, and the sugar converts into this in your body, which ultimately converts into fat. And I didn't realize all that stuff, and as I started educating myself, like Nita, learning what foods, and you never drink your calories unless you're using a Vitamix. But so I found my why. And then after I did it for about 6 months, it was very challenging, and then going back to the doctor and just seeing the numbers that I needed to see. And then on top of it, just the way I felt. I just felt better. I didn't have all these different pains in my body that I was typically having. I was starting to sleep a lot better. And I just started learning more and more. And that's just where it was at for me. But if I didn't get a bad report, to be honest with you, if I did not get a bad report, I wouldn't have changed. I didn't have a reason. There was no reason to change. There was no reason at all to change. So something happened that caused me to change. So,
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like that's for both you and Nita. Something happened that triggered that change, and thankfully, you turned to the right change. And if there was, and I'm going to give the audience a chance to ask you questions, but if you look back, Jesse, 10 years ago, what's the one thing you look back at yourself and you cringe? What's the one thing that you were doing then that you're like, oh, is that the pop? If there was one thing you could choose and you're like, oh.
Yeah, fast food. I would say it's fast food. When I look back at it, I'm like, wow, I did that so often, and it's just what I did. It's just what I did now. And there has been times that I even had a drink of a pop or something like that. Don't get me wrong, it hasn't been 10 years and I haven't tasted the stuff ever in my life. I can immediately taste the sugar. I have taken a drink of a beverage, a pop beverage, and my body, my insulin, it shoots. Something happens within me that actually gets me high. I'm not even kidding you, because that sugar, it hits you so hard. And when I started learning about processed foods, it's a whole other conversation. As soon as I learned processed foods and how all that stuff is made and all that, I just look back and I'm like, I just can't do that. And I used to have conversations with a lot of my friends, and I'm like, that fast food right there, I'm like, even when I'm saying, hey, Father, will you bless this food? I don't even know if you can honor that. I'm like, Father, I bless this food. Can you do that? But anyway, back to the fast food, and then I cringe on that.
Okay. And Nita, if you were to look back before you made your change, what's that one thing that you're like, ew?
In addition to Jesse's fast food, which is horrible, you guys Google chemicals in fast food and start your education that way. Everybody has a phone, so Google that. Just chemicals in fast food, and that's when I started. I just started looking at all the different experts and professionals and this, that, and the other, even to the mental health of people is because of the fast food. But again, the fast foods and I was so addicted to cookies, cakes, pies, and donuts. I use that as medication probably a good portion of my life. When things didn't go wrong, I'd go get a cookie, Oreo, donuts. I loved glazed donuts. You know, it was always something sweet. When things went sideways, I could feel better with a banana pudding, an apple pie, bread pudding. You know, you can just think of all of the desserts and things like that. You know, and even though you're making them, it's filled with sugar, and sugar, they say, is probably the #1 cause for cancer, tumors, all of those diseases that we have. And a couple other things I wanted to say is, I was just reading recently. Now, exercise is #1 as far as going along with changing your diet. But I was reading that exercise really doesn't do anything for your heart or your lungs. I was shocked, and I got to compare to see if I see that more. It doesn't do anything for your heart and lungs, but eating whole, healthy food takes care of your hearts and lungs and all of that. But exercise is a must. It was saying that we as humans, I ain't gonna want to hear this, but that's what I just heard. We as humans can live without sex, but we can't live without exercise.
Amen.
I know that's right. And when I heard that, I said yes, because recently John said, you know, we gotta find what we can do and stick with that. So a lot of things, I know it resonates with you too, what you hear, because you know you wouldn't be coming back here listening to him if it didn't make a difference. But I was so proud of myself because with all the health issues and stuff, I was thinking, well, maybe I should go take it easy, you know, as far as exercise. Maybe I better watch it because but I've been doing the almost daily exercise now that I'm retired. Okay. And I was able to go over 35 minutes on the elliptical, you know, machine. So I said, good, you know, because I was really shying away from that. Now that I've done that, and I just saw the video that we just saw, I need to do that almost every day. So again, guys, please stay away from fast foods. It's nothing but a bunch of chemicals made to taste like whole food. It's horrible what they're putting in, and they can get away with it. All of it is dyes and sex hormones. They said, I've read antibiotics, preservatives. All of this stuff is stuffed into fast foods to make us addicted to that stuff. You have to eat food in its whole state, and really, you have to just learn how to cook. You have to cook.
Amen.
All right, now questions from the audience. Who are you directing this question to?
To both of you guys. I just wanted to bring up the point that because John talked about early on that we have this fallen body and this fallen world, that we all need to understand when we are trying to be healthy. A few years ago, I got a juicer, and I'm sure many of you have received a juicer for a gift or whatever, and you started trying to juice. And did you notice that when you actually try to calculate how much does that cost? Like when you go to Jamba Juice, you're like, $9? You're like, what are you talking about, $9? And then you actually go and juice yourself, and you're like, $9 isn't that bad of a deal. You know, because you realize that the world is gauged so that it is harder for us to be healthy. It is expensive to eat healthy. So that's what Jesse's talking about. Sherry and I were just talking about different superfoods that are offered out there. A dehydrated super vitamin drinks that have your wheat germs and your algae and all the. And let's face it tastes like a cow pie if you just drink it with water. But there's ways that you can incorporate different things that, like if you really had to go out and juice every day to make your own juice for yourself every day, I couldn't afford to do it. We tried it with our family. especially when my boys were growing up and they were doing all their sports, couldn't afford it. So you have to find ways to manipulate it, because our society is gauged for us not to be healthy. The affordable things for you that would make it to where your normal staples. Our society, because we are fallen, it is built so that it is harder for you to do something healthy. So just look up alternative ways of how you can supplement your vegetables in the morning. Sherry and I were just talking that Jesse eats superfoods. You can incorporate that, like for a thing of superfood, which is like $40, that's usually enough for 1 month's worth. So there are ways to make it more affordable. If you're trying to just juice and only eat fruits and vegetables all the time, and they purposely make fruits and vegetables expensive, and our government purposely gauges things and raises the price of them when they really shouldn't be as expensive as they are, but they don't want us to be healthy.
So there is no money.
Wow, Pete, yep.
Okay, another question for the two, yes?
Yeah, I think the first time that Pastor John was talking about the processed food, I didn't realize how much junk was in them and how against the health it is to do that. And that's when I started, no more processed. Then I started reading labels. I wasn't into reading labels and, but this has been a few years ago. And it stuck with me, what he and also all the little videos and stuff. So it was really helpful for me.
Thank you. Yeah, it looks like these two people and education is important. Rico.
Except for
I have a question, except for Rico. I have a question for Anita. I know that you've recently, over the recent years, started strength training. Just kind of switching gears from the food. Can you tell me the benefits of what you felt with your joints and just your overall body?
Thank you, Rico. Rico was so kind to, I don't know how the conversation started, but he was really kind, and he referred me to this lady who is a bodybuilder. And now, I never desired to be a bodybuilder, but I knew over the years with the different issues that I was having with my blood pressure and just everything, and not being able to focus on my health like I had been in the past, that I was not feeling great. And so that was just another thing, I guess the Lord puts it on your heart when you really meditate, when you're really serious about changing where you are and what you want the outcome. You go into prayer, you go into meditation and the Word of God and things like that, and He brings people around that can help you or give you advice, and so He referred me to this person. And about 4 years ago, the guys came from the church and tore down the deck in the back of my house. Some of you guys might have remembered. That was kind of neat. They came and tore down the deck. But before they tore this deck down, I fell through the deck. And it's like 12 feet up. And this foot went out this way, and this foot was dangling. So this foot caught me from just, going any further. And this foot was dangling. And so that was 4 years ago, along with all the other issues that I was having, 4 years ago. So all this stuff was piling on me. And so I, before I went to the bodybuilder, I couldn't, my knee, I would be someplace, anywhere, and all of a sudden I had to stop. My knee would just, I couldn't move. I couldn't walk. And that went on. So I went to a chiropractor and he helped me. But then, fast forward to the bodybuilder. So I saw Katie, and it was a lot, like you say, like he just said, the industry, the world system, for the things that are good for us, they make sure that it's pretty pricey. Yeah. It's really kind of, it's not going to be as simple as $1 hamburger at McDonald's. Whatever is healthy for you, you're going to pay a cost, whether it's your time or your money or whatever. And so she was not cheap. She was quite pricey. And people are saying, you're paying that much? And I said, you know what? Good health is worth the money. I mean, you have money. If you have the money, then pay for good health. Because we can dime a day with cheap stuff. And I went to her and I explained to her about my leg and everything. So she just started showing me exercise. that really built my core. And that's another thing. As we get older, over 50, 60 years old, you have to start doing strengthening exercises, because that's why we walk, when we're old, we walk like this, because our core needs to be strengthened. And she started working with me and strengthening my core and giving me exercises to do. And that's now, with all of these things, now it's much better to be focused on exercise. And I was so glad to hear in that video just a half an hour, because sometimes they make you think you got to work out an hour and a half or 2 hours or something a day, but just a half an hour every day being consistent makes a difference. So yes, the bodybuilding was the jump start for me to get back, because I had been exercising when I was young, and now that I'm in my 60s, you know, and all the problems that I had in my 60s, personal and different things, exercise was so far from me for about, I would say, 9 years. And I just got back on track. And she, the bodybuilder that you referred to me, Rico, Katie, was wonderful. But again, it was pricey. It was pricey. You know, altogether with probably about, I would say, 7 lessons with her, it was close to $500. But to me, it was worth it. And I thank God that He gave me the finances to be able to do that, you know, at that time. And so that did jumpstart me, so that now, and adding with all the other information and knowledge, we have to, just like we have to eat every day, we have to brush our teeth, take a bath, you have to exercise every day as well.
All right.
Alright, thank you all. How much time do we have? Still good?
Maybe 10.
10? Okay, Jesse, of all the changes you have made, what do you think has been the most impactful for your family or the people around you?
Just specific about food?
Or exercise, or, yeah.
Okay, so I'm not having you pick up for that.
So, I know you've made changes that maybe make your body feel better, and you know, all these things which we've been sharing about how it's good, it's being beneficial for you. Is there any specific change that you've made that your family has benefited from?
Now, here it comes. No. So, one of the things I struggle with, and I'm going to say this first before I answer your question, is when I pick up something, or like there's a truth that like, oh, I got that whole big aha, you know, this thing is a lot of times when you get something that benefits you, a lot of times what you like to do is you like to share that, right? You want to share that truth with other people. And I got this truth in my family, and I just got it a little bit before my family got it. And taking that truth and bending everybody your way. Like me forcing my will on everybody in the family, saying, hey, this is what I'm doing so great, you have to stop doing all that stuff now. So, that wasn't the right thing to do, right? Because it's, I get the looks from my family. Every time we go out, they're like, you know, but nevertheless. So no, I would say, when you do something consistently, and people see a change in you, you really don't have to say a whole lot.
Yeah.
But you have to be consistent in doing it. So when you're on the, everybody jumps on trains, this and that, and there are little fads going on. When you do something consistently, and then people see ultimately a change result occurring, something happened, and it's a sustained change, people will start inquiring. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? So we have definitely changed in our household. We do not, all of us don't eat the exact same thing, but we have definitely eliminated things from our house that you just don't find. Like, very basic examples. You won't find white anything in our house. You won't find white pasta. You won't find white bread. However, there are people in our family that still eat certain kinds of breads and whatever the case is, but there are certain things that you just don't have. I don't think you're going to find any sugar. Is there any sugar? I don't think we have any sugar. I mean, we might have something downstairs for coffee or somebody wanted for other people, but there has been those type of changes in the family as far as are certain things that we just don't carry. We usually do not have any more groceries in our house to last for 1 week. And the reason why we only have stuff at the house for about 1 week's worth is because the groceries that we are buying, they die pretty fast.
Exactly.
So the whole, I'm gonna go buy groceries for a month, we can't eat that much food because it's gonna go bad, right? So we usually only go shopping for about 1 week. Sherry has a meal plan, it's 1 week. So we go to, that's all we do, because if we go longer than that, stuff in the refrigerator starts dying, everything starts going bad on that. And we've had to learn the hard way on that. We'll get a bunch of stuff like, I love avocados, but I won't do more than one a day. Because they're very, very rich, they have great fats, very great fats, but I can't have more than one. And they'll go bad. And then I'll eat 2 a day because I don't like stuff going bad. So I have a problem with that. The banana is almost rotten. I already had one because I won't eat more than 1 banana a day because of the sugar and all that in there. But anyways, there you go.
Thank you. So there's definitely, you don't impose your will on your family, because they watch you and you're consistent. There's some things that have changed. Even lowest common denominators, there's no white flour stuff in your home. One more rather personal question. I know you've recently lost your mom. Did that emotional event disrupt your health journey at all, or did you have to get back on track, or you're pretty consistent through
No, it's a very, very good question. There are certain things that have happened. My mom would be one of them. There are certain things that do occur in your life that do get you off. And I have been off many times. I struggle dearly when I go on holiday. I can't pick and choose as much. I'm selective. I'll find myself doing stuff that I typically don't do. But that's okay. So I have had hiccups, but I've done it. I know what needs to be done, and I know the consequences of it also. Spending about going on holiday and I don't have a chance to really exercise or go to the gym. I know what that means. I know every year when I go to Costa Rica, I come back and I put on about 8 pounds. I go because I'm not in the gym and I'm eating and I'm lounging around and I'm doing a lot of stuff. But I know the body's resilient. I know it takes me about 5 days consistently of doing the right thing, and I'm right back where I left. It's about 5 days, I go right back on it. And so there are times that I've had a piece of that, or you had a dessert or something like that. So I'm not 100% this, but I know if I do indulge in something, I know what that means. Like I know the consequences of what that is, and there are certain things that I just know I won't touch because I know my body. I know how my body's going to respond. So.
Good, and one thing I've heard from both these people is knowing your body. So I don't know, some of us feel like our doctors are responsible for our bodies more than we are. But from this too, I am hearing that the responsibility for how you feel, for how in tune your body is, you have to listen to that yourself. You're more responsible for your body than anyone else. So yeah, that's really good. Any other question from the audience before I ask them to fill in any gaps?
It's not a question, but I noticed that when I first moved to where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
and I like walking, I have people now walking that weren't walking before, and they check in with me, and there's no reason for them to check in with me. I went walking today.
Oh, good. Good influence.
What you were saying about our life,
It's
they come
affects
together, they see what you do, and they want to do it too.
Yes.
So now they're ordering a video so that we can do sit-down exercises in the
Very
Yes.
good.
It's making a difference.
You're a walking epistle, Sister Barb.
Yes.
Good. So we're talking about behaviors. We're talking about tools. Being in tune with your body, knowing what's going on in your emotional world, because the more blind you are to it, you get blindsided and you get taken off course. And then Jessie shared a tool, which is a juice. Nita, what is your tool? If you were to recommend to us a tool, what would it be?
I don't know if it's tool more than, like I've already just said, is just knowledge, educating yourself. Educate, read. Don't just take any one person's advice, because what works for me and what works for Jessie may not work for you. So it's on us to take responsibility of our health and where we are. And I'm so grateful that, you know, this church on the side of the road has been so powerful in educating us and reminding us of things that we don't want to talk about. This church talks about a lot of things that a lot of people, that's probably why they just leave, you know, because they don't want to hear it, you know. But if you want God to be real in your life, and if you want to be real, then you will listen to the things that are not simple, or the things that are not tickling your ears. You will listen to common sense, wisdom, and knowledge. And so, again, it's your responsibility to start doing the research. Test yourself. You know what your addiction is, whatever it is. Test yourself. See how long you can go without that addiction, whatever it is, whether it's chips, whatever it's meat, whatever it is. Say to self, okay, self, I'm going to really come clean, find out if this is an addiction. I'm not going to have you for the next 48 hours. Try it. Then you will know. And then, like they said, take notes of how you feel afterwards. Do you feel like maybe you are a conqueror because you went 48 hours without your addiction? Well, how do you feel? And just continue to do that with everything until you know, because I read somewhere where the older we get, there's still that little child inside. So we may be 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old, but there's still a little child. So try to get back to that innocence that you were before you started all the junk food and before you started the smoking or whatever the addiction has brought you to. Try your best to get back to that person that you were before you knew you had all of these barriers and difficulties and addictions. So read, educate. We are without excuse because all you have to do is go Google anything. So, you know, it's up to you, and then just run with it. Run with what works for you. And I love that video because, again, it's your brain. How do you feel? Now you can look at your addiction, whatever it was, and say, okay, how you like me now? You know, if you went 48 hours, 72 hours, whatever it is that's, you know, got you in some kind of clutch or barrier or box or whatever you want to say. Test it, because God is real, and if you're a child of God, we are responsible for taking care of the temple of the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Okay?
Really quickly, so I have my own vices. I have things that I fight through regularly, but one thing that I do know is the truth has always been in me about health and everything I've always known about health and working out. It's not just the bodybuilding industry, but I read a lot of stuff, so I just got to learn. I will tell you this, there's not a one-size-fits-all. So these diets that you see on TV, these fads, these new, you know, this new diet that came out that's gonna overcome the last 12 you tried that didn't work, that you put on more weight with. Be careful that it is not a one-size-fits-all. Be careful, educate yourself, know the truth. Not infomercial truth, but get into the truth about diets. If you have an intolerance to a certain thing you're putting in your body that everybody else is doing in this diet and you don't know about it, it can wreck you.
Right.
So if your body can't handle certain things, be aware of that. Secondly, one thing that I do know that helps me overcome everything, and I talk to John about this a lot, so he keeps me accountable, is exercise is a huge part for my emotional health. If I remove it at any given time for an extended amount of time, I start to go downward.
Yeah.
So for me, emotionally, my chemical imbalances require endorphin release.
Yes.
They require good chemical release. And if I'm not doing it, I will start to go downward. And then I will start hanging on to those vices that wreck me even further. So my point is, if you remove it from your life and you know that it's a part of your equation, that'll be the reason why your eating fails, your her belief that you can get it done fails. I know what mine is now, and it's been very enlightening at 44 years old, things that I knew when I was 22.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? So through that entire time, the devil will work his tail off to put you in his vice, to keep you from looking for the truth further, believing the truth. So what I'm saying is, when you find your equation, stick to that equation.
Right.
That's the only reason you see these successes and you hear about them.
That's right.
Once
You
you
know,
remove that,
I'm-
once you remove that, you're wrecked. So know what your body requires, not what Jesse's body requires, or what Simon's body requires, or John or Nita. You got to know what your body is built like. There's not one size fits all. Educate yourself.
Yeah, I like that you bring up that thing of routine. You find that rhythm for yourself and you stick with it. And it's interesting because I keep making fun of John because I tell him like he's half human because like he can eat the same thing over and over again and not get tired. So can this guy. And what we're hearing from Nida is that the joy of eating a steak is not there for her. So maybe there's a secret here in finding that core rhythm and not getting that joy from the core rhythm. So core rhythm anchors you, and then we find joy from other things. So finding joy is not in the food. God help me. Yeah, and Nancy had her hand up.
Oh, you were just talking about what people's tools are to help them with their health.
Yes.
I find a really good tool for me is Pinterest because I can find any recipe that I want on there, and I always make all my stuff at home. And everyone thinks when you get home from work and you're tired
Yes.
and you have to cook and you don't want to, it really doesn't take that long to make a homemade recipe or a salad. And what I normally do is on Sunday I'll make 3 or 4 different things. And they're there when I come home from work and I don't have to cook.
Okay. Good. No, it's important to share tools, to find a tool that works for you.
So Pinterest is really good for
Pinterest.
healthy recipes.
Okay, Sherry.
Oh, no, I was just kidding.
Yes.
And I agree with her because a lot of people say that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we're moms. You know, I work 10-hour days. I have a hard job. You know, I take care of kids and family, but crock pots.
Crock pots.
There's always, like you were saying, you gotta find the tools because I'm busy like anybody else.
Yeah.
But because we used to eat out all the time. We did, Jesse, not to put him on the spot, we did eat out 3 times a day
Yeah.
because it was easy and convenient. You know, and then Jesse and the money thing, and then we started looking, and you know that goes with everything. And now we eat home every night, you know, and stuff. But yeah, crock pots, you know, we've got 6 lined up on our, bar because we're busy people. We don't eat at the same time. Levi requires a little bit more carbs because of he does sports. So this is Levi's crock pot, and so yeah, it's just you do find it. Pinterest, yeah, I'm a Pinterest junkie too.
Okay.
You gotta find ways, and you can do it. It is expensive, but you can do it. You can find inexpensive ways to eat healthy. It's all an excuse. You can find
Get a
ways.
freezer.
Yeah.
If you don't have a freezer, get a freezer.
Yeah.
I don't have room for a freezer right now, so it's rough that way.
There's a way.
Yeah, I agree with her too. I'm retired and I make up my meals and I freeze them. And that way, if I come home and from whatever I'm doing and I come home and I have something I can do my own thing. Because all I have to do is the night before, knowing I'm gonna be busy, the night before, take it out and put the refrigerator and it's ready for me.
So making sure we prep and plan for our rhythm.
Yeah,
Yes.
because my friend is the same way, she says, well, I just get hungry, so I just eat anything. I said, well, I'll just make that plan ahead of time, so planning is really important.
Marion, how do you find that?
Well, I find that, having, legumes, beans, legumes, things like that, and having certain things that you can get the sensation you like to munch, so have some walnuts handy, or some pistachio nuts handy, or almonds, or something like that. know, those legumes and beans and all of that will provide you with not only nutrients but fiber, and they are filling, you know, and they're good for you. It's a clean food. So I find that those beans, legumes,
All right, Harriet, you have your hand up.
Well, I just wanna say, well, I have a crock pot that I cook in each one, a vegetable, a bean, and then a meat. Now I might have to get rid of the meat. And,
You're ready.
But I do, like the greens and the beans and the worms. But now that I'm older, and I remember my mom and my grandmother, and I go to the refrigerator looking for food, I can't find it, but I go to the freezer and got all these plastic bags up here, now what's in here? And then you lose your food. I think I lose my food when I put it in a plastic bag.
you can write it. Little,
Little things that are
those things that you know.
Okay, so food preparation right there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, so maybe food preparation would be a good series.
When you find you get older, you don't like to cook no more. So food in the freezer and something you can pop in the microwave or something.
Okay? Thank you both so much. Yeah, let's appreciate everyone. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much. Hope now